takes a step forward.
All right, we're back. Same spots, same clothes. Niggas is musty now. Yeah, he's in LA and he's just taking lessons from the homeless here. Niggas getting baths 5 times a year. Yeah, we just talked about cliches earlier, and now we're going to get into the conversation of rivals. To the right of me, I have Professor E. King, the comics, Ethan Murphy. A little further right of him, we have Stanley Malordo Z. And to the far right, I have Lelouch V. I'm your co-host, C. Diesel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Getting into rivals. So I'm assuming you guys had a particular set of rivals in general, or that you wanted to get into first, or is it just the concept of it in general?
Sure. I mean, I don't really even know where to begin. I think um a good rivalry is necessary for your protagonist to grow if you're in that genre but it to me, I feel like what you need for a good rival is not for them to not only push the character in a power level standpoint, but it's who's going to make them going to challenge their perspective, who's going to actually cause them to question their own ideals and reinforce those ideals, not force them to change that or anything like that, but more so say, look, man, the way you're looking at this shit ain't the only way to look at it. Right. And on top of that, I'm just as strong as you. So like, then it's like, okay, why do I feel so strongly about what I feel? And it pushes them to do that. So I'm gonna just start it with that. I think that is a great rivalry in a nutshell. And I think that a lot of stories don't do the full circle of trying to better the protagonist as a whole with their rival. Mm-hmm. It's just more so someone just as strong as them. So they kind of go at it.
All right. Should be open.
Not necessarily opening thoughts. I have a question for the core, because I mean, finding good rivals is relatively easy because you remember most of those were good rivalries. What is a bad rivalry to you? Because I'm sitting here trying to think of one, and I really can't think of many.
Well, I'm trying to think of a specific bad rivalry. Well, I mean, again, I don't mean to keep banging this drum. You could argue, in some sense, a quote unquote bad rivalry is Killua and Gon, because they're not really rivals, but they do help each other grow. And in some sense too, you realize that later on, in a sense that Gon is kind of abusing the relationship with Killua unintentionally, but it's not in that sense. So it's a situation where there are two characters that in any other story where they would be rivals, but they're quote unquote friends. However, they are helping each other grow. So it's not a bad rivalry. It's just not exactly a rivalry. It's all I could think of off the top of my head. If that long. Yeah, she said they were rivals about 5 minutes, and then she stroked her hair.
For anybody watching this video first and not aware of who that phantom voice was, that is I in the corner.
If you think Charlie's voice is that nice, the Oculus.
That's how she referred to herself. She is
I.
She's
I. Brother I is here out of the corner. I, do you have any thoughts on the topic? It is I. She's like Groot. She just can only say it is I. Yeah. As far as a bad rivalry, I know this is probably a popular one, but I feel as though like the Naruto Sasuke rivalry was kind of mid.
I thought it was too easy, so I didn't want to do it. But yeah, man. Look, yeah, man. If that's the case, I'm snatching it because they tried, but then they ended up making Sasuke this kind of like he was jealous of Naruto, and I think that weakened Sasuke heavily because he had just as strong of a reason to be bitter, to be sad, to be angry. He had strong motivations, and like, I'm gonna go kill my brother, bro. Like, you're mad and everything. The village don't like you, and I get that. Like, he should have been saying that. But like, bro, I gotta go kill my brother. So either you help me get stronger, or you get out of my way. And like, that's that. And that should have made Naruto kind of realize I gotta mature. I gotta be. But instead, it was making Naruto seem, I'm coming for that hate in your heart, Sasuke. And it's like, dude, what? Naruto, you ain't that. Like, you have your own traumas and troubles. Like, you're not the people person yet. Nobody even likes you. like learn from what Sasuke is going through. Y'all can both be like the water tower battle scene. I feel like that would have been so much better if Sasuke didn't do that out of being jealous. Like, you remember when Kakashi spun them around and the Rasengan went into one, the Chidori went into the other. Sasuke had the nerve to be jealous after seeing how strong Naruto got, and I'm just like, that's just the wrong message that I feel like we should be pushing when it comes to a rivalry or a brotherhood amongst like our peers. It shouldn't be that. It should be like, dang, okay, I gotta go set my game up. I'm gonna go do 100 more Chidori, man. Like, this is I'm trash right now.
I honestly wouldn't necessarily call Sasuke and Naruto a rivalry, more like a abusive relationship. Because like a rivalry, in my opinion, are two people with a similar or aligned goals that are pushing each other to help get closer to that overall goal. And I think they wanted Naruto and Sasuke to be a rivalry,
100%.
but I don't think they actually executed that process at all. Because, like, especially by the time you get to Shippuden, their goals and motivations are so far skewed from each other that they're not even helping each other's story. Like, they're actually hurting each other. Because, like, you get some parts of the show that's Naruto centric, and you get other parts that are Sasuke centric, and they don't ever really smoothly come back to one. Like, when Sasuke's doing all of his things with as Taka, and then what was the Hebi? Well, first Hebi, then Taka. Like, that literally had nothing to do with anything Naruto was dealing with.
They were literally trying to get him back during all that time.
Right, yeah.
And Sasuke beat his ass and they said, stop trying to get me back.
Yeah, that's not a rivalry.
Leave me alone, bro.
I would say that. So I'm not as deep into Naruto as these cats are, but I would say it seemed more like, in some sense, the earlier relationship between Kakashi and Obito was what a rivalry was supposed to be.
Exactly.
I would say another example, just to deviate a little bit from anime, if y'all have seen or are familiar with, I'm sure most people are familiar with Cobra Kai, for example, with Johnny and Danielson. That's a rivalry where it actually is one that's been built up over several years, and they actually are at opposite ends of the spectrum too. Like, I think a good rivalry, your two characters should be very opposite ends of the same coin, so to speak.
And now they work together.
And they are working together later on too. Spoiler alert for later on down the road. Even in oftentimes in sports anime, which I guess you could say Cobra Kai is sports, like Hinata and Kageyama are two rivals who end up having two different skill sets, but they come together regardless of how much they like each other to have to work on the same team. So it's a rivalry. You should be with your rival a lot, so that your growth is almost forced because of that person.
Well, I gotta say, to this point, to finish it, like the Sasuke and Naruto point, and to kind of get into what you said slightly, I don't necessarily believe they have to be around each other in proximity a lot. And even when it comes to like same goals, I think the Sasuke Naruto rivalry worked in Naruto a lot due to the fact that they had extremely different goals. Obviously, with Sasuke wanted to kill Itachi and Naruto wanted to be the Hokage, but it worked in the sense of like they're training together, they're seeing each other's progress on a daily, and it seemed like it worked. But
They're pushing each other.
yeah, that one. I'm not saying they don't have to. They don't need to, but I think it also worked a little bit when it got to the fact of when they went to go train with their respective masters. So when Naruto's with Jiraiya, Sasuke's with Kakashi, and they came back for, I think it was the tuning exams, is when they finally came back to each other, and then he saw the Rasengan hit the tower. Like, I know you didn't like that as much, but I thought that was fine because at that point they trained separately. They came back and saw the progress, and now Sasuke see how the gap shifted and how that shifted.
If your skills are being tested against that person,
Right.
I agree.
That, first of all, looked like the eye was trying to turn into the mouth for a second. Are you trying to say? Are you trying?
She can talk. Yeah.
Hold on. Now. Go ahead.
Ethan's point just made me want to ask y'all, like, how do you feel about like the original Pokemon where yes, thank you. Ash's rival is Gary, right? You never see him though. So right. Gary doesn't get any of his own like character development or anything like that. He's always getting his badges. You just don't see it happen.
So that's a fair question.
They're never together.
Do you consider that the rivalry?
Yeah, for me. Okay.
The show makes it out that they're rivals. But like,
So for me,
they never see each other.
What's a hater?
so yeah, for me, a rivalry is a rivalry as long as it's pushing you to be better. So that's why I'm saying you don't always have to be around each other. As long as you see this individual and this individual is motivating you to be better at your craft, then I consider that a rival. Like granted, I don't remember how much of Gary saw Ash as a rival at all, or if he like even saw him as like any kind of a threat. But if you see that person as a challenge or as like again like a rival or as competition, I consider that a rival, even if you're not around each other at all.
Real quick, just to piggyback on what they said, piggyback on what I said. I feel like if you're not at all around that person at all, you can't quite call that a rival. You can say that pretty much that's someone that you, in your mind, you see it as your opponent, but or a peer or an adversary. But I can't say it's a full blown rival. I would say, like for example, like with LeBron and Steph back in the day, they were somewhat rivals because they were pushing each other to be better with their teams. So when they came down to the finals too, but for the most part during the actual season, they didn't play each other that much. So I think you don't have to have extreme frequency. That's fair. You don't have to be on them all the time, but there has to be enough contact with one another for it to matter in some sense.
Well, for them, they only played they only played just like 3 times.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they're not around for the most, but still, it was I guess part of the media helped feel that too. But
Sure.
Yeah.
And I guess too with that, because like that got me thinking of just another angle to think about rivalries, and it's just the craft. Like LeBron wouldn't ever consider Steph a rival unless Steph was also at the peak of his craft, like LeBron was.
Right.
You know, like LeBron's like, you see the game in a similar light than I see the game. You have my respect. We can be rivals. It's like Gary and Ash being rivals. It's like Ash was like, look, man, you from the same hood as me. You like Pokemon. I like Pokemon. I'm gonna get more badges than you. Bet. Hey, Gary, I got how many? Oh yeah, bet. Like, you know, it's as long as we have like a mutual respect and we both understand that we are in the same power level. Okay, now we can push each other to keep hitting that next level. Because when you hit that next level, I hit that next level. With Naruto and Sasuke, there was that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like through Pokemon, Ash was always trying to catch up to Gary. Like Gary had more badges, he had a stronger Pokemon. When they battled, he won. Like I don't know if I can call that a good rivalry. Like he drove Ash to try to train harder to catch up to him. But like Ash didn't affect Gary at all. Gary was just Gary.
That's what it is like there. They should both affect one another. If only one person is affected, it's not a rivalry.
So you're saying rivalries have to be mutual. I gotta come. Hey, you are my rival, bro. Accept that shit. Okay.
But that
all right.
person has to be affected by you.
My question would be in that front then. Go ahead.
How do we not know Gary wasn't affected by it? Because Gary seemed pretty like every time he saw Ash, like when we did see him, he was like, I'm better than you, dude. Like, and I want you to know that. So like
I guess what we're saying.
Right. Right.
But I guess I can't speak on too much. It just seems like roughly Gary was already on top tier 3 or 4, while Ash is still much lower than him. And it feels like it can't be a mutual. Like if LeBron was in the NBA and Steph was in college, it's like that's not a rivalry.
just a talented rookie.
So that leads to my question being: is in a rivalry? Do you always have to have a exchanging of the power dynamic? Does one person always have to? Can one person dominate the entire time in a rivalry, or do you? Because in my head, I'm thinking of somebody like, so going back to basketball with a Tracy McGrady and a Kobe Bryant, right? There's similar ages, similar games, same position, but I don't think there's ever a point in their career where Tracy McGrady was ever better. But Kobe was always, like, even in interviews, they talked about it in the interview, how he was always watching Tracy and seeing his progress and trying to make sure he stayed a step ahead of him.
Sure, you can still study your enemy, but I don't. I mean,
because if the goal of a rivalry is for you to push one another, and the person that's stronger is getting pushed, but he just is always a step ahead.
So like the difference between like a Tracy McGrady Kobe situation versus like a Ash and Gary. Trace McGrady and Kobe, like they would have games back and forth where, like, Trace McGrady would drop 40 on Kobe's head, and maybe Kobe only dropped 30 that game. So the next game, Kobe would come back and drop 50, and maybe T-Mac got 30. There was a back and forth there with Ash and Gary specifically. So, like, even from the jump, right? Gary is Professor Oak's son, so he already had full knowledge of Pokemon stuff before he ever got his first Pokemon. Like, Ash got his first Pokemon and was always trying to catch up to Gary until, like, maybe like 400 episodes later when he actually finds him and beats him in the battle. Like, I guess they try to make it into a rivalry eventually, but before then, like, Gary was just like, okay, I got more Pokemon, more badges. We have the same Pokemon, but mine is evolved over yours, so I'm still stronger than you. Like, there was never a back and forth where it's like, like, Gary is like, oh, okay, now I gotta look out for Ash. It's like, oh yeah, still better. Oh, you beat me finally. Now I'm out of the show. Now you written to a new rival, Paul, who's meaner. Yeah.
Some of these names.
Yeah.
Simple. Paul and Gary.
But I'm just going to go back to what Stan was saying earlier, as far as just like how a big part of the rivalry too is just to have different perspectives, or for the rivals to bring out different perspectives of the characters themselves. We may have a protagonist, yeah, but the rival, or the Lancer, as they're called in old school writing, they will bring out they will challenge their thought process. I would say that they actually have bizarrely enough, have a good rivalry / arch nemesis in the MCU with Killmonger and T'Challa in Black Panther 1. He did force him to think outside of the box, or outside his own initial perspective, and T'Challa also challenged Killmonger too, as far in a different way. As far as like they could, if they had been around more, each other more, if they had grown up together more, who knows how much their relationship would have been. So yeah, so I think you can have it, but it's in a way you
No, I think cap week. That's all I'm saying. But leading into a question I proposed to you guys, then at what point do you cross the line up from a rival to an adversary, or is that term synonymous to you guys?
No, it's not.
So where do you draw the line between an adversary versus a rival?
When you start to actively impede on the goal of your rival. It's just like, bro, we have ground rules for one. Like, don't talk about my mama, don't come at my wife, and don't do this. Hey, man, we good. Nigga, you did that? Bro, now you're an enemy. Now I have to turn all my power into destroying you, and I don't even want to do that. So, like, that's it's like like I said, the mutual respect for your craft. You're not going to disrespect your rivalry or your craft by crossing that line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So keeping it along Pokemon terms, so they tried to make Ash and Gary rivals. An adversary would be the next villain for Ash would be Paul. So Paul was a trainer that came on, I think, in the Hoenn region, and he was just flat out abusive to his Pokemon. Like, he would, like, if a Pokemon of his lost in a battle, he would just release it on the spot. Like, there was no, like, Gary at least had respect for his Pokemon. If it lost, like, it's whatever, he might put it back in the Pokeball and bring out a new one, but he's not like going to be mean to the Pokemon. An adversary is when your morality is conflicting as well as your like, goals.
So at that point, we're saying, one, for the distinction between the two. One, obviously, you have to have a significant amount of time with that individual or a relationship with that person for them to be considered a rival, as well as that person has to have, like you guys said, respect for the overall goal or that thing that they're doing. So then my question would be, what if because we talked about somebody like a Naruto and a Sasuke where they have completely separate motivations for that thing. What if those motivations conflict with one another, but they're still pushing each other to be stronger? Like, one conflicts another. Like, if, for instance, let's say if Sasuke was trying to kill Itachi, but then Naruto's goal was to save Itachi, but they're still trying to get stronger to overcome one another, but their goals are conflicting with each other as well.
The easiest answer for that is probably Professor Xavier and Magneto. They rarely, especially in the classic comics, Claremont era, what have you, they rarely try to draw blood against each other. That's not their. Magneto's goal isn't to harm Charles and his team. His goal is to, of course, basically kill humanity. And essentially, Charles's goal is to save humanity. they have two different goals, and they're pushing each other to grow and learn in other ways. But so they cross over. That's a weird one. But I think the biggest one, the easiest one too, is also Aang and Zuko. They both wanted to rebuild the world. Zuko wanted to rebuild the Fire Nation because it was obviously his honor was destroyed, and Aang wanted to rebuild the entire world because of what the Fire Nation did to it. Their goals eventually aligned, but they had very different means about going about doing it. Essentially, so they started out as enemies too.
Did Magneto rip out Wolverine's skeleton?
Yes, only after you warned him like how many times or how many. He does. He's like, I warned, I've done more than you. Basically.
He's like consistently sending the Brotherhood of Mutants to like attack the X-Men and kill them.
But yes, he did. It did happen. But again, this was years down the road, and that's also when Magneto became.
Yeah, that's like 4 X-Men teams.
Yeah,
true.
He did try for a long time. He could have done it.
I remember seeing that scan of Magneto ripping out Wolverine's. That's freaking yeah. But an example I think of kind of what E just said too, though, about characters with different motivations, but they're still rivals. That movie Triple R on Netflix, man. That movie was 3 hours long. It was extra. It was extra as heck. Has music in it that I still listen to this day. Like honestly, like hey, the soundtrack is fire. But these two characters, Raj and Beam, they start off on two different sides of this story. Raj is essentially a coon. Like he's working for the man. He's a cop, and he has like these goals of doing of working his way up in the system. And Beam, is the guardian of the forest, and one of the girls from the forest gets kidnapped, and he has to get her back. Raj actively fights. They meet in the street as friends. Raj actively fights against Beam to stop him from saving this girl. They're friends. They're cool. They're all great. They're rivals. They're brothers until they find out our goals don't align. Bro, like our goals are literally don't align. Bro, you was my boy, and now I found out you're on the whole other side of this shit. But they find a way to find a compromise so that both of their goals can be attained and they can still freaking grow and make each other stronger. So I feel like that is the epitome of a good rivalry. Also, honorable mention to Midoriya and Bakugo.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that.
Yeah, that's probably one of the better rivalries. I'll give you that. I think. Yeah, that they fit all the criteria that we kind of gave for him.
Yeah, you can also say I need to get ready to go, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, like Ken and Ryu. The idea too of one is basically a really, really poor orphan, and one's a really rich spoiled kid. And however, that's what makes it work. Is you have two people with very different starting points. Also, keep as mentioned with Triple R. One is basically a native in the wilds, and one is very much a clean cut cop. When you actually do the rivalry right, they should come from two different worlds essentially too. I think.
Dope. Well, guys, do you have any more closing thoughts on the concept of rivalries? Nope. Sister I, do you have any thoughts? No. Sister I says she does not have any thoughts. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I think the difference between a successful rivalry and a failed rivalry at the end of the day is a couple things. So one, I feel like if you change the dynamic of the rivalry too much, it can go badly. Just because, I mean, you can change it to the point where it's no longer a rival anymore. It isn't full on adversarial thing. Like, I mean, well, I mean, this isn't necessarily a negative one, but going back to his example with Aang and Zuko, like he started off fully full on adversary. Like that wasn't a rivalry. They didn't have like similar goals, and they were put like those were enemies. They became somewhat rivalry-ish because they were both in boxing, say working their own goals and had things that they wanted to do, and then they fell on different sides, and then that became a full enemies again later when Zuko joined on to with Azula, and then they became friends eventually. So like
that was really Katara.
Right.
Katara is the common ground.
Right. So I mean, like in a sense of a rivalry, that was a failed rivalry, but it's a successful relationship. But like then you have the I think what is just a flat out. Oh, well, Naruto and Sasuke, I feel is a failed rivalry because it went from being a rivalry to a full on adversary, and then
forgive me, bro.
one side adversary, and then full adversary again. Like it, because yeah, they start off both wanting to be the strongest ninja. They train together, then I won't rehash all of that, but then when we finally get all the way to the end of Naruto, when they fight each other at the bridge, everything from then on is them being enemies. Like that's not a rivalry anymore.
Sasuke hijacked his dream. He's like, bro, I want to be Hokage now.
Yeah. By the end, and that came out of nowhere. They tried to force back. I was going to get to that, but yeah, they tried to force back in the rivalry to that at the end, and it made no sense. So that is a complete failure of a rivalry, in my opinion. Like when your goals don't interlock at all, but you're just trying to clash these characters for the sake of your plot that you're trying to get out, I feel like that's an easy way to fail, and you see that a lot in certain things. And Naruto is definitely a prime candidate to talk about for that one. And that was my last thought. I'm done.
And all I will say real quick too is just another example of a pseudo rivalry is Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, where they seem like the way their personalities are and their builds, they would be rivals, but they are adversaries because of what is clearly trying to do harm specifically to individuals and to into Sherlock, which is Moriarty, and Sherlock is trying to obviously help other people, but they do, the way they're built and written, they seem like rivalries in of itself. But yeah.
Well, guys, this has been another episode of the Then and Now podcast. This is an interesting conversation. Again, we have more IRL content. Hint, hint. Coming to you guys soon. I think we're gonna go to Comic-Con tomorrow, record some stuff, hopefully have some dope interviews with some amazing people, and get some dope shit recorded.
And then you immediately said what that was.
That was more of a hint at Stan from the conversation earlier.
Yeah, because just in case our viewers want to know, what does IRL stand for?
For anybody that is interested in knowing, IRL is a acronym for in real life content, everybody. And which is what we're going to be bringing to you guys soon. So thank you guys for tuning in. We thank you for your support. We hope for your continued support, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.